Hi, my name is Arnold from the Pay Ashley Back program, and I will be making my opening speech. I reject the resolution in favor of an alternative methodology. We must focus on the micro political community grassroots based act within the community using grassroots and micro political based community activism. The abolition of prisons does not remove the stereotypes against people of color where they can be viewed as thugs and thus capable of and thus viable targets for being to be shot by the police or to view women or the stereotypes of viewing women as sexually deviant and thus viable to be raped. The violences that occur within the prison are born within the community in themselves and within the poverty and the misallocation of resources which only allows for violence to occur from within the community first and then in the prison later. We engage within a prior question to the abolishment of prisons, which means that you should reject prison abolition until later on. My opponent talked about how low economy will hinder social growth. But first off, social reform will never occur within the status quo because the prisons only cost $39 billion, while the military budget costs $664 billion, and which means to be able to maintain a stable budget, we would have to allocate these resources to the military, which means that they will never be able to go to new social reform legislation or institution. And second, this is bad. This is bad because by funding the military-industrial complex, we will only fund for the initiation of foreign wars against Middle Eastern countries, which will only continue to stereotype that Muslim terrorists exist everywhere, and that innocent populations can be considered terrorists and thus viable of being thrown into institutions such as Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo Bay, which means that by funding them by their reallocating funds to the military-industrial complex, we inevitably recreate the conditions by which the people can be viewed as criminals and terrorists and thrown into these prisons in the first place. Next, a disruption of the economy is necessary. A disruption of the economy is necessary to be able to view the local economy, to view the local community as a prior question to improve quality of life and solve for social problems, according to Ted Turner in 1995. Indeed, we will be able to devote far more research and talent to improving things like quality of manufactured good to reduce the application to unnecessary products. The alternative society described would markedly raise these average quality of life. We might have a voluntary or roster working group to perform many community functions. We would have a direct stake in contributing to the welfare of our community and our social organization. In turn, one would predict that the incidence of crime, drug abuse, and social problems would be far below current levels. In a genuine participatory government would be practiced. Next, my opponent talked about the social violence that occurs with rape, murder, and racist violence within the prisons themselves. But first, the state will never be able to solve for this because the state already views people of color as criminals. The 13th Amendment proves how the 13th Amendment proves how the action slavery may have been abolished, but slavery can only be abolished outside of the prisons. Whether or not the prisons are abolished, it is in the Constitution that these communities that if the legal system allows for it, these people can be punished with the institution of slavery, which means that even without the prisons, the institution of slavery of enslavement can exist against people of color. That is why black people are already. That is why there is more black people within prisons than there is outside. And next, the gender violence is the prison abolition will never solve for patriarchal violence such as rape because it is the way that the community breeds this violence that exists within the prison, according to the Inside organization in 2010. Prison abolition efforts didn't center the problem of domestic violence and sexual violence within the community. Calls for prison abolition were often not accompanied by recognition of the needs of the survivors of sexual violence or the needs of organizing efforts to ensure safety in the community without relying on prison or police. Through the survivors of rape and abuse often engaged in criminalized sexual survival activities that led to incarceration. Their experiences of violence, both in the community and the prison industrial complex, were not reflected in prison abolition analyses. Critical political movements working in contradiction to one another, both marginalizing the experiences of women of color and other folks inside, recognize it is impossible to seriously address sexual domestic violence against women and trans people of color while engaging in grassroots organizing efforts to challenge and integrate a gender and sexuality analysis into these struggles. Thank you. Thank you.